Are you all ready? Okay. Well, it is a pleasure to be with you. I have a broadcast background, and so I'm used to having a microphone right in front of my mouth. I don't project very well, but if you can't hear me, just please let me know, and I'll try to speak up. So they asked me to come here and talk about podcasting, and specifically storytelling and podcasting. And so I have a presentation on that, but also if you have any questions or, when someone says do a presentation on podcasting, I don't fully know what people want to know. So please feel free to jump in, or we'll have a Q&A at the end, and we can take the conversation in a direction, whatever direction you would like. But I did a presentation on storytelling, podcast storytelling, hoping that it could give you some tips on how to do a narrative podcast, and also why podcasting matters in journalism and specifically podcasting skills. So who am I? I didn't introduce myself yet. Karen Tricot Steward is my name, and my background is in journalism. For 15 years, I worked at the NPR affiliate in Little Rock, KUAR, and covered legislative sessions. I covered healthcare, the opioid epidemic, criminal justice. We had executions in Arkansas in 2017. I covered those. When I left in 2018, when I left KUAR after 15 years, I went to go work for the Arkansas Supreme Court, and they wanted somebody who could teach civics, basically, travel the state and do events to talk to people about civics, and also videos and podcasts. So I did a podcast when I was with the Supreme Court called Lady Justice, Women of the Court, and there were 4 justices, all from different states, women justices, and we talked about a lot of different issues, and it was neat to get all of their perspectives. So that was a fun thing to work on. Right now, I am the founder and owner of Power of Pod, and that is a year ago I decided to do what I've always wanted to do, and that's just start my own production company, and specifically a podcast production company. With my radio background, it made sense since I'm used to audio storytelling. And some of the podcasts that I've worked on in the past year include Roots of the Spirit, which is hosted by a lady named Spirit Tawfiq, and she is the daughter of one of the Little Rock Nine. And so she has dedicated her life to uprooting racism and has a great podcast called Roots of the Spirit. And I was fortunate to be a part of that. Recently, I launched a podcast called Memoirs in Medicine. It is 2 doctors from Arkansas Children's Hospital who speak to different physicians around the state about one moment that impacted their career, and also recommendations for improving healthcare. And then over the past year, I also decided to launch my own podcast in addition to helping other people with theirs. And it is a true crime podcast called Burden, and it's a story out of Arkansas, out of Texarkana, Arkansas. We documented or did a lot of interviews about the suspicious death of a young mother in Texarkana, Arkansas, and a lot of the story revolved around issues surrounding domestic violence, and so that was folded in there as well, and what happens when we don't hold abusers accountable. So that was a fun project to work on. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Ty King. He is co-presenting with me, and he is the CEO of American Business Engine, which is a digital marketing company. He's also a podcast enthusiast, right?
That's all I get.
And so,
Enthusiast?
just enthusiast, yeah. Expert, whatever. Sorry. He'll tell you more about himself later, but I wanted to recognize him so that he is part of this. So today I wanted to talk to you about podcast interviewing and storytelling tips, so that if you want to start a narrative podcast, you have someplace to start. And there are 2 types of podcasts. You can have a Q&A podcast where you ask somebody to be on your show, more than one person, and you're just interviewing them. And then there's the narrative format where you go out and you get interviews, and then you come back and basically make it into a story. So we'll talk about interviewing and storytelling tips, and then also why podcasting matters in journalism today, why it's good to have those skills no matter what type of media you want to go in. Even if you want to be in print, it's really good to have podcasting skills as well. And then we'll make an announcement about a new resource for podcasters in Arkansas. That's Ty's portion of the presentation today. So some quick podcast interviewing and storytelling tips if you don't really know where to start. So the question is, what makes a good story? And everyone might have a different answer to that, but I'm going to go ahead and present Sean Cole's definition of what makes a good story. And Sean Cole works on This American Life. You may or may not have heard of that show. It's a public radio show that's national, and it's also in podcast form. And so some of the elements that Sean says that are good to think of when you're collecting your story is anecdotes that drive the story forward, change over time, so documenting the change over time, maybe in someone's thinking or, like that, an element of surprise, an audience responds well to that, and then a resolution. And most people like a good resolution, but some type of resolution is attractive to audiences. So avoid the fire hose. So all stories start with interviews, obviously. And so if you go in there and say, tell me the story, what do you think? And people just say, all this information, what you want to really do is steer them towards telling you anecdotes. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So I remember when I was a young journalist and I did a phone interview about some topic. I don't remember. I don't remember who it was. But it was the most awkward phone interview. It lasted probably about a minute and a half. I did not have good interviewing skills, so I was just kind of thrown into it. I don't think the topic was something that I knew a lot about or even was particularly interested in. And I kept asking questions, but it was always one-word answers, whether that is yes or no, or, just one word, like, where did you go? The store, or something like that. And I couldn't get him to open up to me. It was hard. It was a phone interview, so you don't see them in person anyway. But it was so awkward, and the experience was pretty terrible. So I saved the file as worst interview ever and tried to learn from that going forward.
Do we get to hear it?
I don't think I even have it anymore. So, but I can ask the station where I worked, but it was just, not good. I was young and naive. And so if there's anything I can do to help anybody in this room never have the worst interview ever, that's what I'm going to try to convey. So what can we do to get a compelling story? The interview. This is exactly what I focused on and what I did wrong. We're taught a lot about the 5 W's and 1 H, who, what, when, where, why, and how. And that's what I was doing in that interview. Who did this? One-word answer. What did they do? One-word answer. So if you find yourself stuck in that situation and you're saying this is just not going to turn into something compelling, one tip, so the problem is one-word answers. Where did you go? The store. What did you get? A t-shirt. So the tip that I want to share with you today is to ask 2 questions at once. And asking 2 questions at once triggers someone's brain into giving a more complete answer. And so try to put 2 of those together. You don't want to overwhelm the person that you're interviewing, but try to say, which store did you go to and what did you need there? And that's going to trigger their brain into giving a more comprehensive answer. And they can't get out of this question with just giving one word. Let me know if I'm going too fast. And that's why do 2 questions work. Again, it triggers the brain to give a more comprehensive answer. Another problem you might run into, definitely one that I have, is that by the time you get to interview somebody, they've already told the story, whether it be to other media outlets, whether it be to family and friends, they've shared their story already. And so they start to sound robotic because they just want to give you the information that they have. So if they've done that, or they might start saying it too fast because it's just in their head and they're not really thinking about it. So if you're stuck in that awkward storytelling moment and you're going, okay, this is not going to turn into the best thing, try to steer the conversation into a moment of reflection. So pull them out of that rehearsed story and get them to focus on reflection that makes them stop and think rather than just giving fact. So what does this mean? Well, here are, if you get stuck in an interview, this can be your cheat sheet for continuing the interview and not feeling awkward. What did you make of that is one of the best, I think, is narrative gold, because people are always gonna, they will interpret their own situation. They will tell you a lot about a situation when you ask them, what did you make of that? What was the first time that you is always, it sounds kind of like a cliche or, just something that too many people ask, but it does help you understand where someone's story started. And then describe the debate going on in your head. I've never used that one, but it's been told to me by other reporters that that's what they use and it works for them. So another tip for rich storytelling is to what's called pull people back from the end. So someone will start telling you a story and then they're going to go straight to the end. And you want to pull them back and then get more information, and they'll probably go straight to the end again and you won't have everything you need. So once again, you pull them back and then they get to the end. So it's always about trying to pull them back to the story rather than, and this ended, and so I've told you my story, and this interview is done. So you're done with your interview now. You've got great tape. What do you do with it? Or audio. I still call it tape because I'm old. The next thing you need to do is decide your story structure, and it's important not to be overwhelmed. You'll have a lot of audio, and this is the part at which you can just look at all your files and be truly overwhelmed by how at the task at hand, putting it all together. So it doesn't have to be overwhelming. There are two basic formats that you can take the approach. There are many formats, but two very basic formats are chronological. You start at the beginning and you go till the end. And for many stories, that makes sense. This is what happened, then this is what happened next, and this is what happened next. The other format that you might want to consider is called the E format. And that means that you start at a really compelling point. It's probably going to be right in the middle. And then you go back and, tell the audience how we got to that tense point. But you find your really moving, moment that you think people are going to really pay attention to. And that can start the story out really well. So the process. You've got your interview now. This is my process, so it doesn't have to be, everyone else's. But what I do is I go through all of the audio that I collected, all of my interviews, and I try to isolate the best audio. So I'm selecting what I think is going to move the story forward. And then I transcribe that. And I've actually seen journalists transcribe that and cut pieces of paper, lay it out on a table, or just one person, and put their story together that way. I don't do that, but it helps to look at your story in print and not just in audio. And then step number 3, finalize structure. Are you going to do the chronological order? Are you going to do the E format? Or are you going to do something else? And then you're going to want to pull your audio. So you've pulled compelling audio, but you want to narrow it down and pull the very best audio that you have. And then you want to write your story. So what I do is I have the quotes that I want to use transcribed, and then I write around it. It's all about the audio that I have, and then the narration will be writing around that. So that's a little bit about a narrative podcast, and I hope that has helped you a little bit. The thing I think is really important to talk about in terms of the future of journalism is why podcasting even matters to the future of journalism. In February of 2023, there's a company called Sounds Profitable, and they research the podcasting industry. They're about advertising, so that's what they're looking for, but they still do very interesting surveys and that tell us about the podcasting industry. So they conducted a survey of 2,000 Americans, age 18 and over, and what they found is that podcasting reaches nearly as many 18 to 34-year-olds as radio or television. So that's a big deal. People are getting their news just as much from podcasting as radio or TV, which is not the case with 34 plus. So the same survey also showed that broadcast and podcast audiences are starting to pull apart. The reach of podcasting is growing, like we talked about, especially with younger demographics. There is nearly a generation separating podcast from broadcast audience, but they're 18 to 34, so you're going to have to consider that audience. And the podcasting audience is increasingly becoming less reachable by broadcast media. So people are listening to podcasts and they're simply not listening to broadcast because that doesn't interest them. So they're moving away from that traditional method of audio or video news storytelling. So every large newspaper by now has entered the podcasting field. The New York Times has The Daily, which is the most popular podcast, and they've also started doing The Daily delves into stories a little bit deeper, and they've also started doing something that gives the news more quickly if you only have a short amount of time. So many media outlets are launching podcasts, and that's why it's becoming an essential skill for people who want to have a career in journalism. You want to be able to reach that younger audience, and media outlets, like I said, including print media, they will seek journalists who can double as podcast hosts as well. And so you want that skill in your arsenal when you're applying for a job. So the CEO of PRX, which stands for the Public Radio Exchange, which is public radio podcasts, she recently said, podcasting will grow as an essential source of news, storytelling, and opportunity within local communities. And podcasting has become a way, as we see layoffs in local news organizations, whether that be print or television or anywhere, podcasting is a great place to delve into a local story. And you don't have to be with a media outlet to do that. You can do it all on your own, although I would advise having a mentor to guide you. But you can try to delve deep into a story and have that on your resume. And if you do it while you're in college, that's even better because you will have that on your resume. So I'm kind of an example of not being with a media outlet. When I created Burden, I was not with KUAR anymore. But wanting to tell a story. And so there was a story, the suspicious death of Billie Jean Letterman. There was so much around that story that I wanted to tell. But I didn't work for anyone, so I just moved forward on my own with a co-host. And so Burden was an 8-part series that talked about the young mother named Billie Jean Letterman, a lot of conversations around domestic violence, like I said. And I didn't promote it. I spent $0 on promoting it. I do plan in the future, now that it's sustainable and I'm making money from advertising, to invest it back into the show. But without any promotion except for sending out a press release initially, we've had 300,000 listeners in the 6 months. So it's a way to reach, somebody. And so I would absolutely advise that you think about podcasting and add it to your resume while you're in college. There is a podcast called Making Waves out of Oregon State University. that was honored by the College Media Association as one of the best podcasts. And so I would say absolutely that's a Q&A interview type of show, for women sitting around talking. So that's very interesting as well. It's not a narrative podcast, but I would say try finding a story that matters to you. It doesn't have to be deeply investigative. It can just be an issue that matters to you and documenting it. What's cool is that podcasting gives you a platform when you're student journalists that really anyone has. It levels the playing field in terms of when you do a podcast and you make it in the podcast world, it's all one publication essentially. People open up their podcast app and your podcast can be right there, alongside major news organizations, especially if people are searching for local content. So use that to your advantage, I would say. And now I'm going to introduce Ty once again. We're excited to launch an effort, a new resource that will help podcasters in Arkansas. If you're interested in podcasting, don't quite know the tech, you're a little bit intimidated by podcasting and the idea. Exactly, both of those. Ty's going to tell you about something that initiative we're forming that hopefully will help with that.
Come up here beside you. That's all right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm Ty King, and as she said, I was a podcast enthusiast, and so that's how it kind of started. You know what I mean? I've listened to a lot of podcasts, and I think what drew me to podcasts as a medium is because, well, I've always loved music and I've been a musician, so just hearing somebody's voice directly into your ear, telling their story, it's got so much more impact than say a 60 Minutes interview. You know what I mean? You're just watching it on TV. But when somebody's recounting their entire story right there in your head, you really can't avoid it, and you're kind of present in it. It's kind of an ambiance that swallows you up. So I started podcasting back in 2018 because I was interested in it, and I have no journalism background whatsoever. But I was I've listened to enough of these things that maybe I can get it off the ground, you know what I mean, and try to put some effort into it. So I started one where I was just interviewing just random business owners and just people I met just through networking. So with no journalistic background, but I knew how to use marketing, to make the best out of any situation. You know what I mean? So I'm recording content right now. You don't even know that. So we'll be using that later. But yeah, I used that as a platform, and I was reaching out to some of the people. Anybody know who Kevin Smith is, the director? Okay. So he's been podcasting forever. And he's had some recent guests on his show. And I was just going down the list and watching his shows, and I would reach out to those guests after they were on his show, and they would agree to come on my show. Because right now, podcasting is like the Wild West. There's no definitive way of measuring how great is your podcast? How successful is it? What's your viewership? Well, there's not really any of that, because on YouTube, you can see how many people viewed your video. But when it comes to podcast episodes, it's being distributed on so many different channels, from Anchor to Spotify to Google Play. It's everywhere. There's nowhere that you can collectively gather all that data and say, well, we have 500,000 people that listen to this every episode. So they have no idea how big or small you are. So it's really about how much gusto you put out there and how much confidence you project. And hey, I've got this podcast, and I would love to have you on as a guest. And so because of that, I was able to interview some of the people behind Marvel Studios and some of the people that I read. I'm a comic book nerd, so I was interviewing writers and artists from back then, and making connections, and through them, growing my wider connection into that whole world and being able to take on some of them as clients in the marketing scheme. So podcasting is for everybody. It's not exclusive club for only people who have a degree in this or that. There's a saying, I don't know if you guys ever heard it, but great stories happen to people who can tell them. Because everybody has an awesome story, but not everybody tells it. You know what I mean? You don't get to hear everybody's story. You can walk through Barnes & Noble and pick up a few memoirs or biographies and that type of thing, but for the most part, everyone in this room has your own struggles. You've had your own families and the situations you come through. And sometimes when you're going through your own struggles, you ever had a situation where you're I don't even know what to do right now, and you talk to somebody or you hear somebody talking about a situation with them, and then all of a sudden it's a moment of clairvoyance. It's just so clear what the obvious answer is, or you feel better because somebody else has been through this situation before. This podcasting does the same. Whenever you record those stories and you're putting it out there, somebody's listening to it. So last year, I was being honored by the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation as one of their finest honorees. Basically, it's a way for them to give me some things for my resume, and then I fundraise for them. Turns out I suck at fundraising. So I was like, well, what's something I can do that would be fun and raise some funds for them? And so I looked into, there's a podcast convention that happens in Austin, Texas every year called RTX. And I looked into Arkansas and like Googled it, tried to find any kind of instance whatsoever of have we ever had any kind of podcast convention or anything across Arkansas. Turns out no, never been done before. So last year I created the very first one. Started talking to podcasters across the state. There's a lot of them, the big scene in Northwest Arkansas, Little Rock, a lot of them that are doing it very successfully. Like I said, success is subjective in podcasting because there's no definitive way of measuring that. But I take it as if I mention a podcast and you've heard of those people, that's success in Arkansas, right? Because we're in the town of Arkansas, which is like we're all two degrees away from knowing each other. Everybody is. So I reached out to them, paired them up. Karen was one of those. Because of Burden, I saw that she was having a launch party coming up. Reached out to her to be one of my guest speakers there and teach a workshop. Every time we do a workshop, one of the biggest questions we always get is like, I've had several ideas of starting a podcast, but I have no idea what to talk about. Sometimes you just need to talk. Sometimes you just need to get on a microphone and just see what comes out. Because you may be an expert in something. Beverly's got resume experience back there, right? So she could talk about resume, but also she could talk about life. She could talk about her kids or spouse or like the storms that just happened in Arkansas, that type of thing. It's a type of therapy, but it's also a way to get out information. You know what I mean? We interview on our own podcast, the RCAST podcast. We interview other podcasters in Arkansas. We've had so many different types of podcasters come in. So one of them, let's say Content Titan, he interviews people from across the country, people that are doing amazing in business, right? Just trying to learn their secrets. And then he puts that out as content. Others, like Conversations, Cocktails, and Connections. I can never get those three right. It's just two friends that get together and they have a cocktail and they drink and they talk about clothes, about makeup, about events they went to, or just how they feel about somebody that passed or cut them off in traffic, whatever it is. But it's fun. It's fun to listen to. And for somebody, there's an audience for that. And so a lot of people think, well, if I record something and I put it out there, then it's just not going to get any traction. It's not true. I mean, there's 8 billion people in the world. Somebody is going to like your content. They're going to hear it. They're going to resonate. It's going to resonate with them. They're going to be fascinated by your story. And so being able to share that is an incredible platform. It's the Wild West. It's no cost to you whatsoever. Assuming you have a computer or a phone, no cost to you. So that's another question that we always get. We'll open up for questions here at the end. I'm trying to run through this real quick so we can get to it. One of the questions is, what do I start with? I have no idea where to start with technology. Well, I mean, as long as you have a phone or a computer, that's all you need. You can start off with your computer, the microphone that's built into your laptop. You can record either with QuickTime or whatever you already have on. There's lots of free programs on there. Or you can start with just your phone. I would say the next step up would be to get one of these, which is a Zoom handy recorder. Those are awesome. I can take that around with me everywhere. My friend back here was showing me a stabilizer that he had, and it wasn't too expensive, right?
It's like $15 maybe.
Yeah, $15. Put your tablet in it, and it stabilizes so it doesn't look like shaky cam whenever you're, you're interviewing people or you're talking to people, having conversations. You'll see my phone is sitting right now in a DJI stabilizer. And so that allows me to walk around the room. It'll keep a steady focus, and I can zoom in, zoom out, and even though my arm is shaking, it's not. Or I can set it up as a tripod and record this and then upload it later. We have a studio that we record in Little Rock, that's where we're from, and we've got several studios there that we partner with. And so we started this year taking the whole RCAST idea of the convention last year, right? And seeing the need and everything that we heard from the people that were coming to the convention about how much there was a need for people to be coached in how to start their podcast, how to get it going, how to market it, how to even earn some funding, how to get it sponsored. And so it's like, okay, well, let's start this as a nonprofit organization. We've got some wrap cards and stuff and stickers and stuff over here for you guys. But so the Arkansas Podcast Collaborative is a nonprofit organization that is here to promote diversity in podcasting. Because we're here to help coach, give you studio time. We use grants to be able to pay for your studio time, your marketing, and helping you get out there. So it's all free resources that are available to you. All you gotta do is reach out. And so if you're in the Little Rock area, we can help you get into a studio. We're trying to work with a few libraries across the state to help us get some studio time across the entirety of Arkansas. This year, we're working on the second year of the ARCAS convention, and we're going to have an NWA portion of that too. So we're looking forward to that. We've got lots of stuff. I can't even talk about it yet, but it's huge. Our board members have jumped us ahead like 50 steps than what I had planned, and so I'm like scrambling, trying to comprehend how big this is. One of our board members is a producer who started the LA Times on their podcasting, all the podcasts that they put out, like Dirty John. He was a producer of that. Another one's out here in the hallway with the Society of Professional Journalism. He's also a board member. Steve Listapad, thank you. I can never get that last name right. Yeah, so I mean, podcasting's for everyone. It's the Wild West right now. It's so easy to do. Just record, see what comes out. At first, you're going to be shaky. It just happens. Nobody gets on there the first time and be like, I'm a pro at this. You know what I mean? I've heard so many podcasts. It takes time to develop your voice and then figure out, it's constantly about getting better. We're constantly updating the studio. We're constantly updating our own podcast. Like, do we record an intro and then an outro? Or do we re-record this? Or how do we get the music? And so, yeah, super easy to get started. But I really want to open this up for questions right now before we get out of here. Anybody have any questions? Yes?
I feel like since podcasts have gotten more popular, a lot of people are making podcasts, and I was just wondering, like, how you guys get your name out there and, like, actually get listeners. Because I feel like that's kind of, like, I think that's scary for a lot of people. It's like, what if I put my heart into this thing and, like, no one listens to it?
Here's the thing, like, there are a lot of people that have podcasts and maybe they promote it on their social media channel, right? But that's all they're doing. They're not walking around with the card, with the QR code. You can, on Amazon, you can get one of those digital business cards where you just tap it on the back of your phone, have links to all your different podcasts on whatever platform it is people prefer to listen on, because not everybody's an Apple person, not everybody's a Google person, not everybody wants to listen to on Podbean or whatever. So have all your links on there. And promote. Tell them, hey, I've got a podcast. I would love for you to listen. If you don't like it, fine. That's cool. But I just want you to try it out. You never get that. Like, nobody's doing that right now. So, like, you just making the first initial, very minimal steps of telling, hey, this thing is here and I want you to listen to it, that's huge. You're a first. You're trailblazing right now.
And another thing I always talk about, promo swaps and feed swaps. I know you've
That
heard
too.
me talk, but find a show that's like yours. And you can do what's called a promo swap. So they promote you, you promote them. And, if you want to find a show that's like yours but a little, bigger or has an audience. And that's been very effective, making connections in the same genre. And then writing a press release to the local media. The worst they can do is ignore it, but,
Someone over here somewhere? Yes. Anybody?
Oh, you're talking to me? Okay, sorry.
Was that you?
Trying to catch up here.
I didn't know you were going to type me the question or, okay.
No.
All right.
Not all the time. So once you have your podcast recorded, let's say that I have 10 episodes ready.
Yes.
Where do I post? What do I do with it?
There are some free programs to where, you use the paid one, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, so a hosting company is what
Right.
you do with it. So you start with a hosting company that includes Spotify for podcasters, which used to be Anchor but has changed to Spotify, and that's free.
Mm-hmm.
And there's Buzzsprout, Libsyn. There's one called Acast that is also free. Acast that is also free that I really like. Burden is on that, but
That's
you're
Cast?
Acast. So it's
Acast.
Yeah, so it's ACAST.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're They're really great.
Well, we use for our own, and I used a lot. I always used Anchor before, but this year Spotify sort of changed the whole branding around it. Now it's called Spotify, or what is it? Yeah, Spotify for podcasters. There we go. I don't think it's a great change, but anyway, you can upload your episodes there for free, get a free account, but it'll give you what's called an RSS feed, and it's just a line of code, and from there, it'll just walk you step by step through the process. To get it on Apple Podcasts, click here, create an account, paste that code for your RSS feed, and then boom, it's done. So all the settings and your thumbnail and everything that you had for your Spotify for podcasters, like it carries over with that RSS feed code. And it sounds complicated, and like I said, that's why we opened this up anyway, to help coach people through that process, because it sounds super complicated, but it's not.
Okay, so assuming you're doing a storytelling type podcast
Yes.
and not a daily news thing.
Sure.
Do you recommend having podcasts ahead of time? I mean, pre-recording several episodes?
I would say have some in your pocket, because you don't know what's going to happen. Those tornadoes last week, they showed us, that anything can possibly happen. You know what I mean? You might lose your house, God forbid, or you may, not be feeling good on the day that you would normally record. You know what I mean? You come down, you're sick, or family emergency, whatever happens. So always prepare for life, which is the unexpected. If you've got some free time, go ahead and have one in your back pocket. That way you can go ahead and post that out, if you're not feeling as well.
When you did Burden, did you put them all eight of them up at once, or did you drib and grab it out?
So we did a release party to build some hype, and then we put them out weekly. So now now anybody can binge listen. But yeah, we did one a week.
Yes.
I was wondering, because this is what I was having difficulties was naming a podcast that I was trying to do. I was like, because I was worried, what if that's a podcast title already?
Yeah.
And so how do you avoid accidentally, pretty much stealing someone else's title?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a
Google,
search.
So I always,
Yeah.
if you have a name, I always put that in and then podcast,
Yeah.
and just see what pops up.
Yeah.
It's a good sign when nothing does. Go into apps and search for that as well, like Apple and Spotify are the big two, and see if someone has it. There's a database that is a trademark database, and so I also enter that into the trademark database. Yes, because people can trademark podcasts. There is a specific way of trademarking your name or your brand. And so if you don't want to get sued, it's a great place to check out. But indeed, you do want to see, you don't want a podcast that's of the same name. That's going to be super confusing.
Yeah.
I'll say Spotify also put out a podcast name generator to help give you ideas, to sort of spark something in, and it'll give you the title of the podcast and even give you a premise maybe. And so the one I really liked was plus negative or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was two people who are really, really excited and high on a subject, and then one person who's just like a sourpuss and hates everything. You know what I mean? I was like, I would listen to that. I don't care what they're talking about. Yeah.
Is that trademark database going to be something we can get through your QR code here?
We probably should put a link
that
up
on
there.
the
You
website.
think?
And the website,
Yeah.
by the way, is arkansaspodcasters.org. That's where you can find
Yeah,
us.
please grab a rack card or something before you leave. There's stickers up there too. Any other questions?
I just had a tip or a suggestion. If
Yes.
you're looking to figure out if the name exists or not, you could do Google, but do it in incognito mode, because in case you want to make a website with the same name or whatever, if you just Google it, Google will see that it's been Googled, and businesses might want to take it if you just throw something into Google. So
Nice.
Good point.
incognito
Great point.
is a
Yeah.
useful tip.
Very cool. Thank you. Any other questions? Silence. Okay.
Come
All
to the
right.
festival, please.
Yeah, it's going to be in
There's gonna
September.
One in Little Rock and one in Northwest Arkansas in September. And they're going to be on different dates. If you want to drive and do both, that's amazing. Also on the ArkansasPodcasters.org, we have, like Ty was talking about, a podcast where we interview Arkansas podcasters and feature Arkansas creators. So please subscribe to that, like it, and if you have a podcast, by all means, reach out, and we'd be happy to interview you on the Arcast podcast.
Sure.
Do you know what city you're going to do in northwest Arkansas?
Fayetteville.
She knows the answers. I don't. I wasn't gonna answer that.
It
Yeah.
doesn't really matter, I was just curious.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys. And if you have any questions, like I said, reach out. There's plenty of material over here to reach out to us for. And thank you guys.
Thank
Good
you.
work.